Welcome to Easy Podcasting. This is an online training course brought to you by My Podcasting Experience, located at www.mypodcastingexperience.com. This will be a series of short tutorials to try to get you into the world of podcasting. This is part 2, and this is where I'm going to go over using WordPress as your content management system platform, aka your website. Now, what you see on the screen here, this is actually WordPress.com. A lot of blogs are built using this platform. This is a freely available platform. If you want to create a simple personal blog, all you have to do is go there, sign up, and it can become something, like yourname.wordpress.com. You can even go so far as to actually have your domain name routed so that if you have actually secured a domain like we talked about in part 1, then you could actually, I think I used the example rchelicopter.com, and when someone typed that in, they could actually go here. Now, the problem that we have with using WordPress.com is they don't allow you to use plugins. That's not to say that you can't use WordPress.com as your platform for producing or making available to your potential listeners / viewers, to put your podcast on there. There are ways of doing it, but I wouldn't recommend it. What I would recommend is that you go the self-hosted route. It allows you to do plugins. So you can go to wordpress.org instead of .com, and you can download the latest version of WordPress. Now, if you are brand new at doing any of this, then you're probably thinking, okay, so I download this, which means, what does that mean? Well, it means you click on this, and like right here, I click download, and I tell it that I want to download this file in a zip format, which is a compressed format. You can also get it in a .tar.gz, and not to go too in-depth, but that is the Linux compression type, which zip will also work on Linux, but typically the .tar.gz is for Linux and Unix environments. The .zip is for Windows and Mac. Mac can also do the tar.gz. But anyway, so you would download this, and as you can see, it popped over here, and it's downloading to my default download folder on this particular machine. Now, you're not done. All you've done now is downloaded the software. You've actually got to get this software up to your hosting provider. And that's the reason why I'm going to go through 2 different ways of doing this. The hard way, which is downloading, editing the files, and then uploading. And then the easy way, and that is to use the quick install capability of your hosting provider, which HostGator and Bluehost both have that. And I'm quite sure there are thousands upon thousands of hosting companies on the internet, and they pretty much all have the same setup. Some are much larger than others. No matter if you're going with HostGator or if you're going with Bluehost, always check and see if your hosting provider has the capability of doing quick installs. Okay, so if you're going the more difficult route and you've downloaded the WordPress files, then what you'll need to do is you'll need to actually upload them to your hosting provider. Now, I'm giving you an example here of my hosting provider. I'm using a program called FileZilla, which is an open source FTP program that is freely available. It works on the Mac platform, works on Windows, and works on Linux. So as you can see here, I have FTP'd into my host. So generally the way these things are set up is on the remote server, you have what's called a symlink of www, which is actually usually public _ HTML. Anyhow, as you can see here, here's a list of the various sites that I have on my hosting account. And let's say I wanted to go into like this one right here, stuffwewant.southgeek.me. All right, as you can see, there's really nothing here except just an index.html. Okay, since I actually downloaded this using Safari on a Mac, whenever it downloaded it, it went ahead and unzipped this folder for me. So you go into your downloads folder and you find WordPress. And you double click it. And you've got all of these files. Now, what you would normally do is you've got this wp-config-sample. And you can take this file and I would copy it, paste it. We've got a copy now. Rename it because you don't need, all you need is wp-config. All right, and here we're going to open it up with just text edit. Okay, and this pops up, and this is where, and this is the reason why that if you really don't want to know all the intricate details of how WordPress works as far as the back end, like the database information and all of that, you will not want to go this route. Okay, you'll want to go the simple quick install, which you'll definitely see the benefit of going that route for ease of use. Because here we have the wp-config.php file open, and here you have to define your database name, your database username, the password of your database. Typically, you can leave localhost and all this other stuff set as it is. And we've actually jumped the gun a little bit because you don't have a database already created. And so that's part of the problem. If you don't already have the database created so that you know the database name and the user and the username and the password, you can't set WordPress up. So what you can do is you can go ahead, because you can edit these files after you've uploaded them. You can go ahead and you've got one of two ways you can do this. You can actually take the WordPress folder and drop it over in here, which what that's going to do is that's going to actually create the folder inside of this. So once you drive up to your website, if there's no default index.html or index.php, you're going to get a you can't see this site, depending on how your web hosting is set up. But if you were to go to www.yourdomainname.com/WordPress, then you'd see your blog. There's ways around that in the WordPress setting, but each person will do it a little differently. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to back up and actually just drag the folder over because it'll make it easier for me to clean this up, because this is not going to be a WordPress site. But as you can see, it's sitting here and it's uploading this information. Okay, as I stated before, you really need to go ahead and create the database before you upload the WordPress files if you're doing this manually. So you log into your hosting provider's control panel, Bluehost or HostGator or whoever it happens to be. And typically there's one of two different control panels. You have one called cPanel, and then you have one called Plesk. I've used both of them. As someone who used to run a broadband company and we actually provided hosting in-house, we actually used Plesk. I can tell you I like the cPanel implementation much, much better. So as you see here, I'm actually in my cPanel, control panel on HostGator for my domain. And I want to go down here to this section called Databases. So I go to MySQL Database, and whatever your username happens to be, like with us, it's an arrow and then an underscore, you would create your database. So we're going to call this one TestDB. It has now created it, so we can go back. Now we need to create a username for that database. You can create one particular username for the database, or one particular username that you use for a variety of your databases. That's really up to you. I would prefer having a different username for each one of my databases. That way, if one of my usernames happen to get compromised, then not all of my databases are going to be compromised. So here, we'll create us a new user called TestDB. We'll give it a password, and you want it to be a strong password, and it will let you know. So then you can create the user. Okay, so now let's go find our database. See, I have a lot of these. Okay, here we go. We've got this database right here. You see it, but there's no user attached to it. So what you do is you come down here and you tell it, I want to take a narrow DB, a narrow underscore test DB, and we want to assign it to a narrow underscore test DB, the database. So we add it, and it comes up and says, what privileges do you want to give the database? I always give it all privileges. I think ultimately you just need the create, insert, select, but hey, some people will argue with me saying, you've just given this username complete control over the database. To me, it really doesn't matter. So we make the changes, and we go back, and we go to page 2, and you'll see now we have an arrow underscore test DB, an arrow underscore test DB for the user. The files are uploaded. So now we can come in here and we can find WP config. We want to highlight it. We want to view and add it. And we can tell it we want text edit to be our default. So it's going to actually download it to your local machine and allow you to edit this. So we're going to say a narrow, if I can spell, test DB. And then our username is a narrow underscore test DB. It didn't have to be that. Now, also, you need to go here to follow this link, let it generate this key. So now we can copy this key and we can post it right here. And we can tell it we want to save it. And it's going to pop up and say, do you want to upload this? So we do. Okay, so now that we've got the configuration file edited properly, the database has been created, username created, password created, all of that information is in there. I've put this up under mypodcastingexperience.com/WordPress in this example. So the very first time you drive up to it, you have this welcome screen where it's going to ask you for some information like the site title. This is a test WordPress installation. Username, it is highly recommended that you change it to something other than admin. So I'll just put my name like that. Then you want to enter a very strong password, and it will let you know if it thinks it's strong and if it's a mismatch. And then put in email address. Now, for the very first time, you probably want to uncheck this right here, allow search engines to index this site. All that simply is saying that, until you're comfortable and you have your site ready to go, you don't really want Google or Yahoo or any of the other search engines actually indexing the site. This does not prevent them from doing it. It just says be polite and don't do it. So we click install. It tells me, username is Donovan Edkisson, password I've chosen. So I get to log in for the very first time. Tell it I never want to save for this website. And here you go. A WordPress 3.5 control panel. And it automatically tells me I have something I need to update. So I'm one of those types of personalities. Whenever I see something that needs to be updated, it's very difficult for me not to do it. So anyway, I go here, and there you go. Now, if you want to go see what your site actually looks like, you can come up here, tell it you want to visit the site, and that's it. And you can go back here, go to your dashboard, go down into your settings, go to general, and this is where you would change that tagline and various other information like what time zone you're in, and et cetera, et cetera. This is not meant to be an in-depth tutorial on actually setting up all the intricate details of WordPress. I just wanted to show you what you actually have to go through to get WordPress installed and up and running if you do it the manual way.